Welcome to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax. Except you, that person driving. Sit up and keep your eyes on the road. Your ears, though, can still listen as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
I'm me, Rob. We're going to talk about some tacos.
Some tacos, did you say?
Yes, tacos. Ooh,
Tacos?
my favorite.
I want to talk about some tacos. No, we're not talking about tacos. We're talking about the best guards to ever wear the New York Giants uniform today. And now I am craving tacos thanks to Rob. Rob, you're already in the kitchen. Can you make some tacos real quick?
Now, hold on. Let me get right on that for you.
I really do want tacos now is the bad part. See, it's not just me there. So got to get a good tacos. All righty, guys. So before we begin the show here, we do have a couple of things to go over there with you guys. So the very first of which, unfortunately, is not good news for the Giants Nation here. We do have to announce the passing of Homer Jones here, the wide receiver we just talked about here a couple weeks ago. We went over the greatest wide receivers to ever play for the New York Giants. Definitely, our thoughts, the prayers with the family of Homer. I know he had, I think, like 6 children or something like that. He had a lot of children. So
I mean, he was 87, so I'm sure he had plenty of kids.
Well, that doesn't mean anything. I'm 40. I still have anything.
Yeah. Well, but different generations.
But, hopefully they're together. They're able to console one another, remember the good times, remember the great memories that he gave them as a loving father there. And, for all his other family members, friends, and all as well. And thanks, Homer, for all the memories.
Yes.
And thank you for inventing the spike. Like, think about that alone, that one move alone. If the guy literally invented something that 60 years, pretty much almost after he was done playing, is still widely not just accepted, but almost expected to be done now. And he was the first one to do it.
Yeah, I mean, he made NFL history, and not sound diabolical, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of tributes and spikes to Homer Jones.
I'm sure there will be. I hope the Giants open up the very first preseason game, and the first touchdown they get, they all just spike the ball once, go out all the field at once, and just spike the ball in remembrance of him. It might be a penalty, but it's preseason. Yeah. Who gives a damn?
Everyone gets a football. Just spike it all at once.
It's like whose lines anyway. The points don't matter.
Not wrong.
It's a preseason is so. Also, before we get started here talking about the greatest guards here to ever play for the New York Giants, we do also have a little bit of an announcement here we wanted to give you guys as well. Obviously, you see at the bottom there, we talk about if you want to like the show and you want to support it, you can go to buymeacupofcoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. A lot of people have already gone ahead and sponsored the show for particular episodes, and as always, much appreciated. Thank you very much for you guys. Even if you're not able to sponsor and just are able to go ahead and listen to the show, share your thoughts, share it to friends and family and all, again, that's also appreciated. I don't want to become that podcast where like, you must pay us or else we don't care. Like, no. I don't pay for a lot of the podcasts I listen to either at that point. There are some that I am members of Patreons and stuff like that. So, you do what you can when you can. That's what it boils down to. But we do want to announce that we're announcing now a membership option as well. So don't get it wrong. We will still have all the episodes available for free, 100%. We're not changing anything of that. We're not taking anything away from anybody in that regard. Like I said, we value every single listener, watcher, but we do want to offer some additional things. So, for those who care to join up there with that, membership option, which is going to start at just $5 a month, you're going to have additional things that you would gain access to. So the first of which is going to be the fact that we have created a Facebook group specifically for subscribers. So for those of you that like going into the comments here in the group and chit-chatting with everybody else in the comments section there, you'll have that option to do that whenever you want at that point right there in the Facebook group. Also, of course, we'll give a shout out to all, new subscribers during the episodes as well. And we will also have a monthly Q&A session as well. That'll be just for subscribers in that Facebook group. So you get a little more Rob and Drew time here every month as well. There's also higher levels as well, which you get to access to things like having your name actually listed in the show credits at the end, and also access to actually be a co-host there on the program as well. So, again, wanted just to go ahead and announce that there for you guys there. If you do care to join, coffee.com/Giant Buy me a cup of coffee. Buy me a cup of coffee.com/2 Giant Goofballs/membership. It'll also, of course, be available as well if you just go to buymeacupofcoffee.com/2 Giant Goofballs. But if you can remember the dash membership thing, it gives you direct access to the actual page itself. All righty. On to the greatest gods to ever wear the New York Giants uniform. And I think Rob and I will pretty agree that we pretty much have the honesty as the best policy. So we're going to be upfront with you guys. This is not the huge, exciting group full of Hall of Famers left and right, guys.
But there are Blues.
Yeah,
Let's go Blue.
And there are Pro Bowlers. There are, all pros. There are one guy in specifically who is, you could easily say in the Hall of Very Good. Again, we have to look it up to see if it actually is, since we found out there actually is a Hall of Very Good. But there are still some really good players and guys who contributed a lot to championship teams and, some of the better teams the Giants have had over the years. So let's get right into it here. Our very first one, Art Carney, 6'2", 230 pounds. Played with the Giants in only 2 years, back in 1925 and 1926. So, yeah, half my grandparents weren't even born yet when this man was on the field.
But the honeymooners were.
Yes, and I had to put that note in there because I got to be honest, for those of you guys who are into classic TV shows, classic movies, Art Carney is also the name of the actor who played Ed Norton on The Honeymooners. I did have to look it up to verify if they were two different people.
So it's funny. I actually knew that. That's where I shamelessly took Podcast Land from, because that's where hello out there in TV land.
Yeah.
I was from Art Carney.
But I had to look it up because I'm like, is that Art Carney? Like, wow, how cool would that be if Art Carney was a New York Giant at some point?
I mean, he would be a small guard at that point.
To the moon.
Bang, zoom, domestic abuse.
Whoa.
I mean, what do you think that was back in the day?
Did you see that episode of Futurama? They went to the moon. And
yeah.
For those that haven't watched it,
season 2 or 3.
Yeah. For those that didn't watch that episode, they had their main character Ralph there going to the moon, Alice. To the moon, and they made it seem like he was actually talking about going to explore space.
Yeah.
And then Fry was like, "Oh, that's just a euphemism for beating your wife." Yeah. But anyway, back to Art Carney, who played for the New York Giants, as we go onto a tangent here. Again, only played 2 seasons, so he's mentioned on the last episodes there with the talking about the centers. It's not uncommon for people back then only play for a couple of years because they needed to get real jobs. They had families they were trying to support, and football didn't pay like it does now. It doesn't even pay like it did 50 years ago, especially in 1925. It was practically a new sport. So, but he wasn't all pro in there. So, like I said, we got to put him on the list. As I said to you guys with the centers, if you made an all pro or a Pro Bowl, we're going to put you on the list. And we're going to try to rank them based on those accomplishments, basically. Probably the fairest way, since we can't go back and watch every single game that happened, over the last 100 years.
Can you find all, 12 games at that time that he played for? Or what was it, 20 games? How long was the season?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, as we got Connor chiming in with, what can I get Roberto to cook for me tonight? LOL. He's making tacos, Connor. We've already established he's making tacos. I'm not sure what kind of tacos. Pork tacos, maybe?
Poor man's tacos. Sorry.
I do like pork. I can't help myself. I got a slow cooked pork into a taco.
Nice pulled pork.
A pulled pork taco with a little bit of cabbage in there, a little bit of barbecue sauce.
It's like a Korean style taco.
Oh yeah, it's good. As we also got a recommendation here for shrimp tacos in the comment section. Shrimp tacos. That's a good surf taco thing right there.
It is. I'm just
Yeah,
a good old fashioned of good old beef tacos.
As Connor also says, "Oh Mickey, you're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey Mickey. Hey Mickey." Oh, it's good to have to put a clap on in the room.
Boom.
Listen,
mine's on delay.
I gotta say, this is the most comfortable shirt I've ever gotten from Disney World. And for those who may be new to the program here, I do live in like an hour and a half away from Disney, so therefore I do go quite often. All right, on to our next guy, Tarzan White. Tarzan, and his actual name is Art, but he's known as Tarzan White. Here's the one for you.
Going through his history, you can find out why he was Tarzan.
Oh yes, we're gonna get into that.
Honest, he was not found in the jungle, but
welcome to the jungle.
Your name is Art.
He's probably going to go down as one of the shortest people on our list of greatest players of all time, especially for the offensive line, at 5'9", 217 pounds. And what's crazy is when you
I can say that I'm bigger than a guard in the National Football League.
When you look up pictures of him, how he looked back then, he looked like a big guy. That's the crazy thing. Like if you look at how he looked as a football player, as a human in general, he looked like one of those big, bulky guys they put in like the silent films that threatened to beat up Charlie Chaplin.
Like, Bruno from Popeye.
I wouldn't go quite to Bruno because he doesn't look that big. He just looks like the big guy that if you say the wrong thing at the bar back in the 1920s was going to belch you in the mouth.
Would you like a knuckle sandwich, kid?
No, here, no. So, and he did probably talk like that because he was a second-round pick in 1937. 1937. So he played with the Giants from 1937 to 1939 and also played with them in 1945. He did play a couple of years with
that gap?
Yeah. Oh, we're going to go to that gap. That's one of the more important gaps in Giants history, along with Michael Strahan's teeth. He's
played wired by the ear.
So he did talk. I'm looking at the comments here. He did play in 1940 and 1941 also with the Chicago Cardinals, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah,
it just sounds wrong to say Chicago Cardinals.
It doesn't even like roll off the tongue right.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. So as far as the gap there, because obviously we had a little bit of a gap here. He did stop playing to enter World War II. He coached after the war, actually, for a little bit there, and then played a little bit there with the Giants again in 1945. So definitely got to give a shout out to all the people that served in World War II because listen, we haven't dealt with luckily that in most of our generations to that kind of scale. So you got to give it out to people that decided to go basically. Pat Tillman it because he did make it back alive. I don't want to take away from that what he did with Pat Tillman there, but to give up a career playing football and just go, you know what, my country needs me, and goes right in the military, like that's a stand-up move right there.
Yeah, I mean, let's think about we entered World War II a little over 80 years ago.
Yeah.
So
been a while. And like I said, he played for a few years there for us, got the Pro Bowl in 1938. After he was done playing, and this is where his nickname comes in a little bit interesting because he had the nickname as a player, but he became a pro wrestler after he was done with the New York Giants and playing football overall, and he did hold multiple championships there. It's
again Bruno.
Yeah.
Tarzan.
So he found his Jane. He went to play, did some wrestling, had a family.
Watch out for that tree. Splat.
As Connor typed it out for us before. We're doing George of the Jungle and Tarzan at the same time. Here we're just combining characters. Alrighty, on to the next here. Butch Gibson. Let's
talk about the time he played in his name, because that's a name that you don't hear that much anymore.
No, but that's like back then. That would be like I feel like the name has a different meaning than it did back then. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely.
like Butch tends to be more of a how you act as far as masculine, feminine nowadays, whereas back then it was considered a quote unquote.
They were the
nickname,
Chads
basically.
back in the day.
The Chads, not the hanging Chads. So Butch Gibson, 5'9", another 5'9", but he's got a few pounds on Tarzan there. He didn't have to worry about the weight with the vines and swinging from the trees and all. So he was 240 pounds.
I mean, you would have been able to hang on to a vine with that. You'd break them all.
Played with the New York Giants from 1930 to 1934. Ooh, weird. Just going back in time this whole episode, it feels like.
We're going to go back in time.
One-time NFL champ with the New York Giants and was an All-Pro in 1931. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't sit there and say it's the longest career in the world, 5 years. But
I mean, this is also pre-Super Bowl era. So,
yeah.
like, your NFL championship was...
Yeah, you were the best of like 9 teams.
Yeah.
We're still taking it though, damn it. We're still taking it because we have more rings. We have more rings than anybody in the whole NFC East because of the NFL championships.
You're not wrong.
I know I'm not. That's why I'm taking it. Yeah, take that, Cowboy fans. All righty. Next up, K.O. Lunde. His actual name is Louis Kenneth Lunde, but everybody called him K.O. KO.
So it was funny because back at that time, like you could go by Butch, you could go by a 3-name name like Louis Kenneth Lundry, like, or you could just go by a nickname. KO. Come. It was gonna work. I was gonna go David
KO played guard and he went home and he retired. He played with the New York Giants from 1937 to 1941. Then had a gap, played in 46 and 47 as well. Again, that gap, World War II. So again, thank you to KO. I know obviously he's not alive anymore, but still, I feel the need to thank you.
Your family's listening
like that. Yeah,
thank you.
I feel like I gotta say too. That's like a thing now that I'm in Florida. Like that's more. I feel like it's more of a Florida, like a South thing too as well. It's kind of interesting how like. Down here, it's like a normal thing. You hear somebody's like service automatically more than it was up there for some reason. I don't know why. It seems that.
What do you mean? Like, do you hear more about World War II veterans?
No, like people just acknowledging and thanking people for their service. It just seems like more of a thing down here for some reason. Like up there, it was like, okay, thank you for your service. But here's like, no, thank you very much for your service. It's like a legit, like it just feels more heartfelt for some reason. I don't know why. Just an observation, random observation.
I guess I'm that guy that just always thanks everyone that I don't pay attention to that.
Like I said, just random observation. But anyway, one-time NFL champ, Pro Bowler in 1938. And afterwards, he worked as an insurance salesman. So you wouldn't expect a guy from going from NFL guard to insurance salesman. Like I can picture him like, like
take my insurance.
Big guy in a suit. Like, you'll need this life insurance. You don't sign up, you'll definitely need it.
He just walks the door like a gorilla in the suit.
I was thinking that the gorilla in the suit thing too. I was so thinking it. It's just, this just shows you the difference in the times. Like, could you imagine, like Tom Brady replacing Jake from State Farm because he's retired now? Like, it's just not going to happen. Like,
he's too busy with those not the Hyatt, the car company.
Hertz.
The rental car. Yeah, Hertz. There you go.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, it just. Like you said, you don't see that kind of thing very often. So I just thought
it's not even like Jake from State Farm because this guy, he'll probably walk door to door like, "Hey, you need life insurance. Protect your family."
Hey, I'm KO from the New York Giants. We're here to talk about your health insurance.
You may see him playing around New York.
I know you're smoking plenty of cigarettes, so you'll probably live forever. But
but you're driving that new automobile thing. Doesn't have seatbelts.
What happens if you need opium?
Yeah.
Health insurance. The difference of the times.
The doctor says if you smoke a pack of cigarettes a day, you'll feel better. Less stress.
Anyway, on to our next guy here. Darnell Dess, 6 foot even. Oh, we're back to the 6-footers finally, at least. 243 pounds. Played with the New York Giants from 1959 to 1964. Also played with the Giants from 66 to 69. He had a little bit of a gap there. It wasn't the war. That was obviously post the war.
That wasn't there.
Yeah, it was one. He played 1 year with Pittsburgh and 1 year in Washington, D.C. there. So 2-time Pro Bowler, 1962 and 1963. That's why he's made it a little higher than the guys we've talked about so far that just had one. Interesting fact, though, he's still alive. Like I hate to say, like, shocked by this, but he's 87 years old. Every pretty, I feel like we talk about from these Giant eras, every single one of them pretty much has been dead.
Pretty much.
We found Homer Jones was alive. We were all happy, and look what happened to him this week.
Let's not jinx. Jinx start out. But I just wonder if he's still over 200 pounds at that age.
Listen, he might be. He might not be. Who knows? You do lose a little
he's
weight when you get older, typically. So, I mean,
he's probably still strong as if.
He's also not like the the guys that play nowadays that are like 350 pounds, and you see him a picture like a year and a half after they retire, and they're down to 200, like that.
Well, I mean, it's not that drastic, but I know what you mean. They'll drop like 50 pounds in a year, which is nuts.
It does happen. As Jackie says, 87 is the new 67.
Yeah, but not that 87.
Connor also asked, did you watch the video of Peyton Hillis with Michael Strahan about him saving his kids in the ocean? Had me shed a tear. I did not see that, though. I got to say, I'm curious now that you've said that, because I heard a little bit about the Peyton Hillis story, him saving his kids, I believe. And Connor, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, so I know you will anyway. But if I remember correctly, it was like a tidal situation where the kids are being taken out by the tide, and he went out to go save them. And I think if I remember correctly, that's what it was that kind of scenario. And he barely made it back to shore himself after saving the kids. So, I mean, if that is remembering correctly, or even something else just heroic, like that story did not get enough traction. So yeah, I think I think it's good for Michael Strahan to go out there and give it a good audience and a good give a good space for that story to be told, because you always hear about bad things in the NFL and bad things that happen to NFL players when they're done. Peyton Hillis had, let's be honest here, one really good year. The rest of his year is a very pedestrian NFL player. Had an above average length of career, but didn't have this, 10-15-year career or anything like that. So it's good to hear something positive about a guy who's also a former Giant as well, later on like that. So we also got Connor says, I'm 54, feel 84, LOL. Got it laughing as well. And then Connor says, rip current. Okay, that's what I thought it was. I thought it was a current situation from what I remembered. So, yeah. So, yeah, again, got to give it to Michael Strahan for giving that guy a good position to show that kind of story like that. And he says he was in the hospital for a while. Yeah, I think he just got out recently. I remember correctly. Like, it was a couple months he was in. It was that bad. Like, so. All right. Yeah, exactly. All right, on to our next one. We're going to start getting to some of the bigger names now into Giants history here. First up, a guy that some people may not remember him as a player per se, depending on what generation you're from. But Bill Austin, 6'1". Oop, he's a really tall guy. Yeah. We're going up and up in size. Father. We're going up. Austin 316. Yeah. 6'1", 223 pounds. He was a 13th round draft pick in 1949.
It's amazing how many late round picks the Giants have on this offensive
I'm telling you, like, if an NFL team actually was good at drafting back in the day, they could have had a powerhouse. And you got to think it wasn't like it is now, where there's all these scouts and all these different people that do this for so long. They're just kind of like, yeah, went to one game, he looked okay, let's get this guy.
Well, that's what I'm saying too. Like, yeah, you had a way more scouts. It's not like you had the internet. Like, you had to read some papers going around, so you had to have a big staff team, and then you had to send people around the United States. That it's not like they flew that much back then.
Yeah, no.
So you either took a train or you drove.
Yep.
So if you so if you really hold ass, you can make it from Giant Stadium to Sacramento in 3 days.
Yeah. I saw one scouts. Game this month though.
Yeah. Or I guess you do the tour. You would have to go up north to the Midwest.
I think back then they had scouts for areas like they do nowadays, and they just pretty much stayed out there.
And they just telegraphed it back in. Morse go do 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 do.
Yep. All righty. So let's see here. Played with the New York Giants from 1949 to 1957. Oh, we're moving into the 50s, guys. We're moving on up. One-time NFL champ, was a Pro Bowler in 1954. Now, the reason we put him a little higher on this list than some of the guys who had a couple was just the fact that he actually played for the team for 8 years. Had a much longer career than some of the guys we talked about that played 2 or 3 years.
Well, also his post-career as a player.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to get into. So, like I said, you may not recognize the name as a player. You may recognize him as a coach. So he coached in the NFL from 1959 to 1985. Actually, I'm sorry. I shouldn't say coached in football. I should say from 59 to 85.
Correct.
His last 3 seasons were actually in the USFL. He was the Giants' offensive line coach from 1979 to 1982. And 1982 was a good year, by the way. A very good year. Special events happened.
The world just came to be.
He was the head coach of the Steelers from 1966 to 1968. Went 11, 28, and 3, and got
stellar coaching.
Yeah, got quickly replaced by one Chuck Noll. Now here's the crazy thing. So we just thought he was the coach of the Steelers from 1966 to 1968. So we're talking almost 55 years ago. You go to him, to Chuck Noll, to Bill Cowher, to Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Someone's thirsty. So I mean, think about three coaches against our record here. You're talking what, McAdoo?
Boo that man.
I'm trying to think. I might be right in that it might actually be McAdoo. But yeah, I mean you're talking, a huge difference in number of coaches. So you got to give it the Steelers on that one. He was also the head coach of the Washington team as well in 1970, and he was their head coach because he was the head coach after Vince Lombardi died. Actually, people forget that Vince Lombardi actually ended his career coaching and being the GM for Washington. They pried him away from Green Bay, but he did die pretty quickly into that.
Because it took him out of Green Bay.
Exactly. Listen, most players' career go to die in Washington. He just happened to actually physically die as well.
And then got buried in New Jersey.
He did, in Middletown, New Jersey. Oh, yes. So, yeah, like I said, good long career. 8 years with one team is always a good career there. Got the Pro Bowl, got an NFL ring. Was a long-term coach afterwards. So, definitely gave a lot to the team overall and to football overall. So, all righty, on to our next guy here. Now we're getting into the modern things, as Connor says. Connor says, Roberto, no peeing on live TV.
I just went straight horse.
Connor also says, also forgot on tight ends night, Howard Cross has son Howard Cross III, who's defensive line of Fighting Irish. You know about him. He thinks he's eligible next year, maybe join G-Men. I got to be honest, Connor, I do not. I know he was there. I do not know as far as his draft prospect status or what we're thinking about him long-term, to be honest. But, I admit freely that we don't really watch a lot of college football until the season's up, and then we just cram it in, basically.
Pretty much. I try to watch a little bit more this year, but it's just...
Yeah, between work and this show and all that kind of stuff, it's just too. And we watch the Giants games literally like 3 times before we do episodes, so it's like,
who knows? Yeah. Maybe now that I'm a first shift, I might watch some more college ball.
Yes.
So I was on second shift for a while.
Yeah, I have to work all Saturdays too. That's the other problem. So that's a requirement of my job. Anyway, we're going to the modern times. Oh yes, the modern times. William Roberts, 27th overall pick in 1984. Played with the New York Giants from 1984 to 1994. So that's a good 11-year career there.
And it's a good stretch of a time to be a Giant.
Yes.
Especially if you've been listening to our other histories.
Exactly. So he also played 3 more seasons after that. He followed Bill Parcells over to New England and to the Jets. So he's definitely a Bill Parcells guy. 2-time Super Bowl champion, was a Pro Bowler in 1990. He also started his career, we should comment that, in playing tackle. We put him on the guard list because of the fact that that's where his Pro Bowl season came from. But he was actually a tackle from 84 to 88. So just, one of those guys you can move around the field. We have a couple of those guys. We're talking about one of the tackle episode, obviously. I think you guys probably will guess who I'm talking about. And like I said, just good lunch pail guy, went to work, did an above average job, and did it for many, many years. And obviously has a couple rings now to show for it too. So
yeah, 2 more than I do. Should put a ring on it.
So yes, William Roberts, like I said, it's nice to get somebody. I'm like, I know this guy. I actually watched him play before. This is the first on this list that I think I've actually been old enough to watch. So that's the only reason I'm calling it modern times, even though the guy hasn't played, a quarter of a century at this point.
Pretty much. Well,
you got to
almost
figure
30 years, actually.
You got to figure he's probably pushing 60 at this point. Modern player.
Probably over. I mean, you can figure 94, right? Was his last year?
Well, no, 97 was his last year. He started playing 84,
okay, so
you figured if he was 20, he was born in 64. So, yeah, he's probably about 60 years old.
Yeah.
All righty. Now that we stopped making me feel old, next up on the list here, we're going back in time again.
Like Marty McFly.
Yes. 10,000 gigawatts.
Ah!
Oh, no, that's the flux capacitor again. Let's see here. Next up is Orville Tuttle, not to be confused with Orville Redenbacher. He did not make
Orville
popcorn.
the Television Show.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. A very good show, by the way. We're going back into the shorties here. 5'9", 210 pounds. Played with the New York Giants from 1937 to 1946 there. So nice, decent, long career there. 1-time Super Bowl champ and 2 Pro Bowls in 38 and 39 there. So, hard to kind of go back in time and see a lot of this stuff here. But I'm telling you, I'm almost tempted to go back and rewatch the 1938 season. We had that Super Bowl championship because every single lineman that was basically on the roster, NFL championship, every single lineman that was on the roster basically made the Pro Bowl that year.
Pretty much, yeah.
I feel like our backups had to, or we were playing with like 10 linemen at the same time because we have 2 centers that made it. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah. I mean, let's also talk about the names too. Orville. Who names your kid the Orville now?
Not nowadays, that's for sure. But back then, I'm sure it was very common,
It was like Steven.
Or nowadays, look at you want to talk about a name that's dropped off the face of the earth, Karen.
Well, yes.
That was a very common name for many, many years. But now because that's become the name for the rude customer and all, now it's
It killed that name, and it's terrible because I think after about 10, 15 years ago, that name was very popular.
Yeah, and it's a shame too because it's been a nice name for a long time. And I have an Aunt Karen; she's not a Karen.
I feel bad for all the Karens out there.
Seriously,
especially when they're sweethearts.
But you know what? Almost I feel bad to a certain degree when they're not, because then it's but now it's are they just living up to the name or?
They went full Karen. Kamehameha.
She came into her partial Karen, but now she's a capital K.
Yeah.
All righty. Next up. Now we're going to actually modern time, Rocco's Modern Life, kind of modern times here. Ron Stone. Now we're getting to the big boys here. 6'5", 325 pounds. That's the lineman. That's the lineman
we know.
That's the lineman.
When the weight hits the height, that's a lineman.
All right. Before we get into him, let's go over a couple of the comments here. We do have a couple comments here. Connor said he never got over Bill Parcells wearing the Cowboys uniform. Saw him at Giants camp today online, getting old. That's why I pushed Tom Coughlin to be top head coach now. You know what? You got to keep in mind the difference in the time period. And we're going to have an episode ranking the best head coaches. So I don't want to give too much away because we will get to that later on this offseason probably. But when it boils down to it, Bill Parcells took a train wreck of a franchise and just totally like revamped the entire thing. And
multiple teams.
I mean, and he did it everywhere he went. But I mean, I'm saying with the Giants specifically, as far as we're talking about the best ever, whereas Tom Coughlin went to a team that just a couple years before was in the Super Bowl. It wasn't a trash franchise at that point. That's what the Giants were when Parcells took over. So I'm going to say, I'm going to lean towards giving it to him, but I'm not going to make a final call until we have the episode because that's when I'll actually dive in.
Yeah,
but
I'll just say Coughlin got a dumpster full of trash, and Parcells got a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
full of trash.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat accurate. I think Coughlin got a little better of a team than people.
We'll get into that later. It's not too far.
All right. Anyway. Connor says, Orville, can't imagine having a name like that as a kid. You're destined to be put in a trash can or a locker. No, back then you were the cool kid with that name.
Yeah, right.
Connor says, Roberto and me, great minds think alike. And then Soul Brother number 1 says, sup, y'all? What's up, man?
How you doing, brother?
And then Connor asked if Jackie is related to you, Roberto. I wonder if she is.
Is it the profile picture? We both got long snouts.
And then Connor says, hell no, you don't go coach a rival team to beat us. Plus, you gave us Romo, LOL. We're just going to clean up some of that. Anyway, listen, I don't like that he went to Dallas. I will always hold it against him that he went to Dallas. But in the end, listen,
he also gave us a lot of good years.
The Giants could have offered him a job back. You're going to tell him he can't take a job? Yeah. Offer him a ton of money? I mean, in the end, that's what they're about. It's a business for them. They don't have that. You think the Cowboy players and the Giants players and the Eagles players and all don't hang out together and drink after games together and stuff like that? Guys, it's not like that. It's like that for us as fans. That's it.
I mean, especially nowadays with the players, there's more. Everyone works together because the more they all excel, the more they excel as a whole.
Yeah, like I said, it's different for them than it is for us. Fans hate each other. The players couldn't care less. That's life, and the coaches go in that exact frame there.
I mean, how many times do you find out about a player as a fan of the rival team that they're playing for?
Yep. As Connor says, Parcells should have been GM. That's because, listen, if you're going to have him cook, you should be able to pick out some of the groceries, right? Was that the famous line he said? Anyway, as we're talking about people with the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants, let's get back to Ron Stone here, who originally was signed as a restricted free agent from Dallas in 1966. At the time, the contract was considered huge. And many, not just the Cowboys, but many people in the NFL were upset at how much money the Giants had offered a guy who literally had never started in the league. Now, let's think about the contracts nowadays. You got people literally playing offensive tackle and, guard guys that are, close to, in some cases, over $20 million a year.
That wasn't 30 years ago.
30 years ago. This is the money we're talking about. $10 million over 5 years. That was the contract that pissed people off. $2 million a year. That's like a minimal salary now for NFL players. That's like a veteran minimum.
I mean, we might be able to give the Giants saying, "Hey, there's a new minimum for the guard position."
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Played with the New York Giants from 1996 to 2001. So, didn't have an extremely long career, just 6 years with us there. But he had 2 of those 6 were Pro Bowl seasons in 2000, 2001. And he was a big part of that offensive line that just totally destroyed the Minnesota Vikings, getting us to the, 3rd Super Bowl, lone loss Super Bowl, unfortunately, of the New York Giants, history there. He did also play for the 49ers for a couple of years afterwards, and actually did get to the Pro Bowl in 2002 with them as well. So he had 3 years in a row as a Pro Bowl, or 2 of those with us. Just developed into a really good, solid guard, and a really good anchor to the line there overall. Here's another interesting little tidbit of it's a small world after all. It's a small. I got to do that because I got the Disney shirt on. You may be saying, what's Ron Stone up to now? Well, guess what? I'm going to tell you. He's the offensive line coach at Valley Christian High School in San Jose. And you're probably sitting there going, why the hell would I care about that?
Who comes from there, Drew?
Same high school that Colin Johnson went to. It's a small world after all. Like I said, it's interesting how the world turns like that there. As Connor looked up the actual quote for me, he says, if they want you to cook the dinner, at least they ought to let you shop for some of the groceries. He says, my favorite quote was, don't tell me about the pain, show me the baby. Parcells had some interesting sayings over the year, that's for sure. But, I mean, like I said, on to Ron Stone, though. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say that he was pretty much the best offensive line we had in that small little time period we had there. And you got to think that Tiki may not have had some of the better years he had and some of the better runs he had if not for Ron Stone as well, because he was a hell of a run blocker for him. Hell of a run blocker.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. So, got to give it up to the guard. I feel like the guard is like the position that no one cares about to a certain degree. Like, okay, we have to have a really good tackle to prevent the quarterback from hitting them. Like, in the end, the guard.
If you're playing chess, they're the pawn that's out there.
They're moving around.
Yeah, they move around and set up your bigger pieces to make the moves.
Exactly. They're pulling, they're moving around, they're setting up the runs. Like, it's an underrated position, I do feel like. I really do. All righty, on to our next underrated guy. Len Younce. We're going back in time again. 6'1", 208 pounds. Like, he'd be small for a safety nowadays. He would.
Pretty much.
He's like a corner sized. In fact, I'm going to look. I feel like looking up Deonte Banks now. Deonte Banks. Oh, my God. Height and weight for him. Let's see here. 6'1", 205 pounds is Deonte Banks. Guess what?
That's a corner.
Yeah. Len Younce got the 3 pounds on it. That's why he was a guard, not a corner.
I got 3 pounds. I'm a guard.
Guard. I mean, it's amazing to see the difference like that. So he was drafted in the 8th round in 1941. Played with the New York Giants from 1941 to 1948. So had a good 8-year career there. Was selected to the NFL 1940s All-Decade team. So he was literally one of the best at his position for that decade. Made the All-Pro twice, one of the first team member in 1944 and a second team All-Pro in 1946. On top of that, he also was a linebacker, a kicker, and a punter at times. He was that old school guy that just played wherever he had. Give me a helmet, tell me where you want me to go.
Put the leather on, let's go.
Exactly. It was a leather helmet days probably. He also was a coach for many decades afterwards. So, just a guy that loved football, a guy that was involved with football forever. You don't hear enough of that like he just loved it, like just kept going basically. So, you got to like that kind of stuff. Even in 1992, okay, was the last time he coached. This is a guy born in 1917.
It's a very, very long career doing it.
Yeah. He was 75 years old. Still trying to coach. He had to stop at that point because of health problems. But he was an assistant coach for Oregon State University, also with the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Edmonton Eskimos. I love the CFL names. It was a linebacker coach for the Portland Loggers. Oh yes, that's what the Continental Football League as well. So again, just nice to see a guy that just loved football so much that even after he was done playing, just kept on going and kept on going. And he was a big part of the 1940s New York Giants as well. And obviously just the NFL as a whole, because of the fact that he was literally on the 1940s all-decade team. That's an accomplishment. That's a good player. There's no way around that. Again, not in the Hall of Fame, though. We're going to have to add him to
the Hall of Very Good.
No, I listen, my theory. We've talked about this with Carl Banks. If you are the best player at your position to the point that you are in the decade team,
you should be in the Hall of Fame.
You should be in the Hall of Fame. That to me is pretty cut and dry. Like, you're the best at your position for that decade. You should be in the Hall of Fame. So,
yeah.
Another guy that skipped over. The Giants get screwed all the time. All righty. We're going back in the 1950s here. We're doing a sock hop here. Sock hopping it with our second guy here. Who, the weird thing is, we talked about Len Yountz being part of the 1940s all-decade team. This guy on paper has a better career. So Len just our third.
He's a little younger, so we're just saying.
Yeah, just a little younger whippersnapper.
Yeah.
Jack Stroud, 6'1", 235 pounds, drafted in the 5th round in 1951. That's an early pick.
Especially in the 50s.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. It's like drafted in the 72nd round.
Yeah.
Played with the New York Giants from 1953 to 1964. So a good 10-year stretch there. One-time NFL champion. Second-team All-Pro in 57, 60, 62. Pro Bowler in 55, 57, and 60. So that's 4 of the 10 years he played for us that he got either a Pro Bowl or a second-team All-Pro. That's a pretty good track record there. His last few years, he did actually play tackle for us as well. They did move him outside, which is weird because usually you hear the reverse.
I was about to say it's the other way around, but
usually it's the reverse.
It's also a different era.
Yes, that was a different time.
Yeah.
Boy, the way Glenn Miller played. Songs that made the hit parade. Even though that's a different generation, but that's the generation they were reminiscing about in the 1950s when they were singing that song. But yeah, another guy that, like I said, is just really good lunch pail guy. It wasn't the guy who sat there and said was the best at his position. It wasn't like Len we can actually, say that about because they literally put him on the all-decade team. But the guy played for a solid 10 years for us. About half those. Yeah.
For 10 years, he packed a ham and cheese sandwich with a little thing of milk and went to work.
How about a ham and cheese taco?
Ooh,
that sounds good, doesn't it? Like, and a hard shell.
So we talked about pulled pork, which technically is ham, just not ham slices.
Yeah, but you don't put cheese on pulled pork.
Yeah, you can.
No.
Put some cheddar on it.
You don't do that. You don't do that.
You never had a pulled pork slider, huh?
I have. It's just I'm half Southern, so therefore. But yeah. No, it doesn't. Shrimp.
Shrimp doesn't go to everything.
No, I'm saying put cheese on shrimp. You'll change your mind real quick.
You never had a shrimp dip?
No, you don't put you put a piece of cheddar on shrimp and see what you think.
I don't say cheddar. There's different types of cheeses.
Make it with Velveeta. It tastes better. Anyway, enough. We get so sidetracked today. I don't know if you didn't eat beforehand. You're in the kitchen. You're just talking all kinds of food. You tell people we start talking about nachos today and tacos, whatever it was.
I said tacos. I didn't say nachos.
Tacos. The nachos.
We can make nachos too.
Pulled pork nachos are pretty good. Actually, the Giants bar in Tampa.
And you put cheese on that.
Good. Yes, that you can. Anyway, Jack Stroud again. Guy doesn't get enough credit. one of the star offensive linemen for what was a heyday, so to speak, for the Giants. Remember, it's not just the one championship they had. They were going to the championship game almost every year in that era. So, you don't do that with having good protection for your quarterback, good, holes for the running backs like Frank Gifford, that kind of stuff. So, again, kudos to Jack Stroud. Jack Stroud ends up being number 2 on our list here. But we do have number 1 to go through. Oh, yes.
Who does number 1 work for?
Who does number 1 work for?
The New York Giants.
His father-in-law.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I'm right on that one.
Touche. Yeah, touche.
So I think y'all know who's this going to be here. I did give away that hint I just gave. Chris Snee. Mr. Snee.
Bless you.
No, the funny thing is when I was going through like different things to put up for him on YouTube for keywords to find people who can find the video, they did put Chris Sneeze actually as one of them. Chris Sneeze came up. Chris Sneed with the D at the end came up.
Yeah.
A lot of versions of his name came up. I'm like, whatever, I'm going for it. He's going to be definitely the most searched of the guards that we're going to have on this list here. Chris Snee with no D at the end, no Z-E at the end. 6'3", 305 pounds. Second round pick in 2004. So good draft for us, huh? 2004. You start off with Eli Manning, and then you go to Chris Snee. That's a pretty decent start to your draft right there. Like you could just go ahead and go up to the podium with our third round pick, a pile of poo, and we'll still say it's a good draft when you get Eli Manning and Chris Snee.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
In hindsight, like some people were upset about these first 2 picks, but in hindsight, they made some great football for the Giants.
And you know what part of it is that the concern was that it wasn't just the Eli situation going on. People were concerned, are we giving up too much for him, blah, blah, blah. But it was also, now you're drafting the head coach's, at the time, daughter's boyfriend. Like you got that dynamic going on. Luckily that dynamic worked out well for them. But I mean, that's a spell of possible trouble. Now, I did look it up out of curiosity. I was like, who else did they draft at this draft here? So Reggie Torbor was the linebacker. And he played for us for a little while there. Wasn't the best. Jabril Wilson, who started at safety for us for a while. Jamar Taylor. I don't remember the name off the top of my head at all. Drew Shrajny, a tackle who literally doesn't even have a page on Pro Football Reference. That just tells you he probably never even made it to the field. Derek Ward, the running back, which I think we'll all remember Derek Ward, the running back. He one of those guys that if we went top 20 on the running backs, he would have popped up on that list. That's for sure. I think didn't he have the 1 year, I want to say, as a 1,000-yard rusher?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yep. 2008 New York Giants. Yep. There he was. 2008. But yeah, so yeah, that's a hell of a draft. Just for those first 2 picks alone, but you throw in Jabril Wilson and Derek Ward. Yeah. They also got a guy named Isaac Hilton at the defensive end, but he didn't ever play.
But they got great discounts. They got great discounts at the hotels.
That's exactly why they did it.
That's 100%.
They just want Paris to show up at training camp. Anyway, so again, was second round pick in 2004. Played with us from 2004 to 2013. So he had a full 10-year stretch there, and his career ended because of injuries, where he would have kept going. If he hadn't been hurt, he would have kept going he was still in the top of his game there at that point. Was a 2-time Super Bowl champ, obviously 2007, 2011, both those teams he was a member of. Was a first-team All-Pro 2008, second-team All-Pro 2010, Pro Bowler 2008, 2009, 2010, 2012.
Which, like we said, he just got better and better, and then injury just took him out.
Unfortunately, that's what it was. I mean, this was the consistent guy. And we had a good offensive line back then. We talked about Sean O'Hara before. Obviously, a lot of Giant fans remember him very well. We had like Kareem McKenzie and David Deal and people like that. We had really good offensive line back then. Richie Serbert, I almost put him on this list as well, but he unfortunately never made a Pro Bowl, never made an All-Pro. So that was our qualifications to get on the list. But, you're talking about a line where all 5 members of the line were solid players. All 5. There wasn't a single guy in that line you were like, oh, this guy sucks. We got to cover him up. But in the end, Chris Snee was the best member of that line. Hands down, bar none, the best member of that offensive line. And I got to say kudos to him and Coughlin. We talked about the family, part of it there. The fact that who became his future father-in-law was his head coach.
And they were able to keep that out because I hopefully at Thanksgiving dinner, if they weren't playing football, they did not talk about football.
Yeah, and they said that. They actually did say that they had a rule about that when they were out in family stuff, they weren't allowed to talk about football like that. And I got to wonder, you can say that all you want, but when you live, breathe football, it's going to come out.
Yeah.
It's going to come out. I doubt that never, was there.
Hey, Tom, did you hear what O'Hara did this weekend?
Exactly. It's going to happen. And Chris Snee also ended up following Tom Coughlin over to Jacksonville, if I remember correctly, and was a guy who also was a scout, I think, for Jacksonville with him. He's also, I should mention, a Jersey boy, by the way. He was born in Edison.
Ooh.
So right from our neck of the woods there. Good old Edison.
That's where they invented the light bulb.
Exactly. No, actually, that was not in Edison.
I know.
Womp. He was also an assistant coach last year over at Boston College. So he's still involved in the game. Again, we see guys still involved in the game. It shows they actually love the game. It wasn't just a paycheck for him. Because let's be honest, he's not exactly sitting there making tons of money as the assistant coach at Boston College.
No.
He probably was seeing a few words to Zay Flowers every so often. Hey, Zay.
Go to the Giants.
Go to the Giants. Not that he has any say.
Yeah.
Maybe one day. But again, this is the Hall of very good guy. This is definitely that guy. Like I wouldn't say he's a Hall of Famer because he wasn't, he wasn't like the best center of his generation. But he was a guy that was a consistently good center for a long time period. A guy that could play nowadays and still hold his own with no problem whatsoever, and you never had a bad story about him in the 10 years here in New York. I guess we said had the issues with Coughlin and trying to figure out that dilemma, and they figured it out like pros, like professionals, definitely.
Yeah.
And another guy that you can sit there and say, without him, does Tiki have his great run towards the end? Does Eli become who he is without the protection of a guy like Chris Snee provides?
Do we go to the Super Bowl without him?
Yeah, I mean, you could make these questions as much as I know most guys will sit there and talk about, the quarterback and the running back and the receivers. In the end, what have we been talking about for years? Years now.
We need to beef up that O-line.
You can't expect Daniel Jones to be a great quarterback when he can't get time in the line.
I mean, Drew, I know we've talked about this, but we've been saying that before DJ took over. Yeah. Eli was just getting beat up his last couple of years.
Pummeled.
Yeah, and you just wanted him to look better, but like he couldn't.
Yep.
He had no time to throw the ball.
And he had no one to throw to sometimes too. Unless OBJ was out there. So, yeah. All righty. Let's see here. We got a couple more comments here before we head on out here for the evening. Let's see who we got here. Got a couple here. There we go. Connor says the stoner. Talking about Ron Stone there. He says it's not the fight of the dog and not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. And then he also says, "You guys are lucky. You're still young. 75, so close to me right now. Get away, get away. Come on." Death and sleep. I don't want to get all wrinkly. LOL. Listen, it's gonna happen. We all get them, and you can see here as I'm raising my eyes up. You can see they got the lines already going and everything too. Stuff happens. It's better the alternative. I'll take it. But yeah, it is what it is.
As long as I can still walk and not fall and have all of my mental abilities,
That's the big thing for me, the mental ability. As long as I'm still here, unless somebody finally takes me up my idea I've had forever, where they should make a Alzheimer's wing for, older people that have Alzheimer's and make it a version of the Harry Potter Hogwarts. Like, if I have no clue where I'm at, let's just put me in some fantasy world. Let's go for it. Like, give me a magic wand and let me think I'm magical. Like, let me enjoy it.
There we go.
Let me go for it. As I've now just pissed off anybody that has a family member that has it. But in the end, like, what the hell? I might as well have some fun with it. Deb says, didn't Flowers play right guard in college, but Giants had him play left guard and he didn't do well after the switch? Is there that much difference between left and right? And then Connor also says Flowers was left tackle, I believe, Deb. She says, oh, okay, Connor, maybe I got that wrong. If I remember correctly, Eric Flowers played right tackle at college, and then we switched him over to left tackle because, let's be very frank, we had no good tackles whatsoever. So he kind of had to play that role. But we never did move him over to the guard position, which we should have. I mean, look what happened to him in the end. He was good for, Washington for a few years to that role. He was good for, Miami for a little while for that as well. So, yeah, he probably should have. Sports Reference, which is the pro football reference for college sports, just list him as O-line. They didn't even list him for,
but
what he did at that point there for them.
There's minor differences that make big differences in the play of your technique from going from left to right or right to left, because you stand on more of an angle than flat-footed straight up in front of someone. So if you're used to playing on the left, you're more right forward, and you're using your right arm more than your left, trying to block tackles this way, and vice versa. On the right, you're using your left forward. So the technique's a little different, and your body is, some people can't adjust to this, a little tweak in that.
My body is a wonderland.
It is wonderland, but the footwork is a little different. How you're taking your steps back to help block or protect. It's just minute things that make that compiles up, and it does make a big difference. Minute hole.
No, it does, and that's part of what they were talking about Evan Neal this year, where he moved from left tackle to right tackle for us, and you saw the struggles he had. So it's not as easy as people think, just moving side by side. It's almost like, not to the extent, but it's somewhat equivalent to trying to be ambidextrous when you're right and stuff like that. It's you're trying to flip everything over, and the body's used to doing it a certain way at that point. So it doesn't necessarily work as easy. But again,
that, or like it's like going from being a regular stance in boxing to a southpaw almost. Like you're leaning with a different stance. Some guys can do it, some guys can't. It can make or break a career.
What was that? Whatchamacallit, that player in college baseball, I want to say it was, that was able to pitch with both hands, and he had to have a special mitt because he was able to go back and forth.
I don't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about. But I mean,
there was a guy like that.
More commonly, going to baseball, it's guys that get bat from the left, bat from the right, and then you have 10% of the guys that do switch hit. But even those guys didn't hit the same amount on the one side. Or maybe it's more 10%, but yeah.
I looked it up here. I cannot pronounce this guy's name for anything, so I'm not going to even try to pronounce it. But yes, there was the guy. He was 96 mile an hour from the right side, 92 miles an hour from the left side, and he was a lefty originally. So
crazy.
That's insane. But yeah, like I said, it's not as easy for everybody at that point. So, but yeah, Flowers should have been tried out of guard before we got rid of him. I still think that. Connor also says, whippersnapper, LOL, stifle yourself, Edith. Talking about it all in the family there. Let's see here. We got Connor also asked, not for anything, now that he's retired, how do you think Phillip Rivers would have done here over Eli Manning? I'll put it this way. Phillip Rivers had a better team than Eli Manning did. Let's call it like it is. He had a better team than Eli Manning did, and he got no rings.
The one thing that helped Eli be so good in the NFL was his composure.
Yep.
His ability not to get flustered over bad plays, bad hits, interceptions, whatever. He could just bounce off and play like it never happened. It's a real talent that a lot of people don't really recognize. Philip Rivers was a hothead when it came to that, and it messed up his game.
Yeah, and imagine if you consider the reverse and say, what would Eli have done if he went to San Francisco? And I think it's San Francisco, San Diego. Sorry, I think it's pretty obvious that San Diego, with that team and Eli Manning, would probably have a ring or two.
Probably.
I mean, also make the argument of would they even have gone to LA? Would Eli have saved them from going to LA?
It's true.
It's a question.
I mean, also San Diego's, well, at the time, San Diego's biggest problem was their coaching. They just like hiring knuckleheads.
Well, their stupidity was they went from, what's his name?
What's his name?
No, why am I drawing a blank?
Something guy, with the last name and something. I can't think of his name.
No, because they had Norv Turner. They hired after.
Norv Turner.
But who was before him? That's what I'm trying to think. The guy who was like the quintessential could not get you to the Super Bowl, but got you to the postseason every single year.
Yeah, it was like one and done in the postseason.
Yes. I'm looking it up now. But it's like they went and made changes they shouldn't have made because they wanted to go ahead and, for whatever reason, try out a change to a worse coach, that guy that didn't prove multiple times he wasn't the guy, basically. So yeah, I don't know what the reason. Schottenheimer, wasn't it? Was it Schottenheimer? I'm looking it up now. I'm trying to look it up. It might have been Schottenheimer. It's gonna drive me nuts now. It really will. Marty Schottenheimer, that's who it was. Yep. Yeah, so they went from Marty Schottenheimer, who was a damn good coach, never got to the Super Bowl in the end, but was a damn good coach, and just couldn't do it. So they went to Norv Turner, who was a crappy coach, and it proved he was a crappy coach at that point. So that's the reason why Eli didn't want to go there, because his family knew this is the poor decision making that would have cost them. But I think he would have won one with Marty Schottenheimer. And I kind of feel bad for Marty Schottenheimer. That guy had a hell of a career. He really did. So anyway, as we get off that tangent here, but 327 wins in a 21-year career. That's pretty. 200 wins in a 21-year career. That's pretty impressive. That means he got 9, 10 wins every year, basically, on average. That's pretty damn good, especially when you consider the fact that he started off in Cleveland.
Cleveland rocks.
Anyway, back to that. Connor also says, loved Jabril. My kid used to say gerbil. And then Connor says that guy has some balls going with the head coach's daughter. Listen, he was going out with her before Tom Coughlin was the head coach. I don't know if Tom Coughlin was the head coach of the Giants when they started going out together. But Tom Coughlin, I know that Chris Snee was in college, obviously, when they met and started dating. So Connor says, please, Roberto, reach over and slap the Harry Potter lover. Listen, I'm sorry. That's a good idea. I still think it is. It's right up there with my idea for the Karma Sutra to be the Karma Sutra should also be a pop-up book with pull tabs.
We great. Neat.
See how much fun this would be?
Ding.
Connor also says, I can have sex with girl on my left side or my right side. I'm sexually ambidextrous. Can you, Connor, though?
At the same time?
He suffers from a very sexy disease, sexlexia. going back to the Futurama references. Alrighty, guys. So
smoosh.
snoo.
Yeah.
So again, we'll be back on tomorrow night for you guys here. We're gonna do a quick rundown tomorrow for you guys on the mandatory mini camp that was going on this week and all the events that have been going on there. We will also touch base on the comments that have been going around this week with Saquon Barkley and his comments he made at his youth football camp You'll probably hear us say the same thing we've said the last couple of times. I'm going to say it that way, that it's no big deal. Don't worry, he'll be here. But we're going to at least address him real quick. And then we'll be back again Monday, unless any big news breaks between now and then, to complete our offensive line talk and go over the tackles. And like I said, we got some really good stories with the tackles here. Some stories of some guys that, time has kind of forgotten to a certain degree and shouldn't be forgotten. Like the guards. And so the guards, like I said, we said this right at the beginning of it. This isn't the group that we're like, oh my God, we're so many good guards we had over the year. At the tackle position, there's one guy especially that we're going to spend pretty much a whole show on. We could easily, because he's just that good of a player. But there's some other guys that just, all decades teams kind of guys that, you don't ever hear about. Again, we have, guys that went off to war as well. We don't want to, give them their recognition of that as well, including one who died in war. So, we really have to go over these kind of things. And, plus, for those of you who enjoy, learning about car radio ads with Hyundai Elantras and all, we'll talk, of course, about a man who might know something about that as well.
Hyundai.
So, we'll definitely get into that for you guys Monday. But like I said, Friday we'll first do that for you. So keep an eye out tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as always, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and my LinkedIn profile.
Awesome view
there. And of course, as always, available afterwards, usually about an hour or two after we're done recording here. It'll be on the audio platforms there as well for you. Amazon, Apple, Spotify, all the big guys there. We're on them all. iHeartRadio.
Do.
Connor says, "Thank you, Roberto. One more slap or choke." Now, is that for me or for the girl on the left or the right? I'm just asking.
Right. Whack. The backhand. Slap.
Oh no, slap chop. Slap chops. So anyway, again, guys, we'll be back on tomorrow night there for you guys. Again, a reminder for those who are interested in joining up there that we did announce today about the new membership here, subscription starting at just $5 a month. Get some extra features there with the 2 Giant Goofballs here. Again, guys, we appreciate everybody for listening in. Hope you guys enjoyed the show and learning some new names here potentially, because if you're like me, you probably haven't heard of half the guys we talked about from the 1920s and 30s, because like I said, that's before my grandpappy. So not something you talk about often in the 1920s talking. I'm sorry, in the 2020s talking about the 1920s football players. But we're going into it here. We're diving in deep.
Grandparents were watching them as kids.
Yeah, exactly. We're diving in. Again, we're back tomorrow night for you guys. Appreciate everybody listening in. We got a couple of comments here posted as we're trying to get out of here. Let's see here. Connor says, "Signed Viking guy. See what Saquon died." Oh, does.
I guess did. Oh, does. Yeah.
Does. Yeah. I was like, wait, Saquon died? Wait, hold on. That was Homer. He says, yeah, no, we're not signing Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook's already said he wants like $10.5 million. And he's not nearly the player that Saquon is. Anyway, Giant fans, we'll talk about that tomorrow night there. As always, Giant fans,
go Dreamers!
Thanks for listening to 2 Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support. If you made it this long, you must have enjoyed it. So I am sure you have followed us on all the social media platforms. Of course, you have subscribed to the show on your favorite app as well and given us a top rating. Right?